So close, almost there. And we are live. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the BAMP podcast. Your very best choice for quirky sci-fi superhero / comics related RPG news. And here is our opening music. That assures you, gentle listener, that you are listening to a high quality, high production values podcast. So we are honored to have Darren Drader with us tonight. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
Yep. For those of us those who might be listening and can't see it, Darren has got a really cool post-apocalyptic background.
It is pretty.
Yeah, I like it.
That is our co-host, Jacob Blackman. How are you doing, Jacob?
I am well.
Sweet. I am glad to hear it. So this kind of ties into with something we've been working on over at Fandango Games for a while, although it's our next issue of Blaster Bolts is going to be very centric around Reign of Discordia, which is Darren's. I'm going to say I wanted to call it your long-running sci-fi setting because that's you've been doing Reign of Discordia for well over a decade now, right?
Yeah, it first came out in 2008.
Well, that was just a couple of years ago. I mean, people might say it's a long time ago. That was just the other day.
It was. It really was.
Well, let's talk about the setting because it'd be a whole lot more interesting. Oh wow, we have 4 people watching. We have and more showing up. Hey folks, thanks for checking us out. Sanokin, you're here. Hey, Walt is here. Hey Walt, good to see you, sir.
Hey Walt.
Yeah, so we got Reign of Discordia, which is a pretty interesting setting. Looks like you originally did this for the True 20 setting.
Yes.
And later you did a version for the Traveler RPG.
We did. We don't talk about that one much.
Okay, fair enough. I apologize for bringing it up.
No, it's okay.
And I perfectly understand. I don't like Traveler either.
It's not that I don't like Traveler. I think Traveler is a fine system. The issue was that we hired somebody to do the conversion for us who, as it turned out, didn't really know what they're doing, and it didn't come out as well as it could have. So it's kind of a mark of shame, unfortunately.
But this new version you're doing is going to be utilizing the White Star RPG rules, which is a system that we here at Fading Goat Games know and love because we've been producing lots of stuff for that recently, most notably with our Blaster Bolt zines.
So we're actually doing 2 versions. One version is going to be for White Star. The other one is going to be for 5e. I've got a lot of experience working with both systems. I know them both backward and forward, and I think they're both going to be excellent. Obviously, if you back the Kickstarter, you're going to have the option of picking one or the other, or both if you want it.
Excellent.
And this is. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I like both games, so giving the options is good. I'll more than likely be picking up the PDFs for both of them. I really just need to decide whether or not I'll want the physical copies as well.
So that's kind of an interesting point too. What we're going to be doing with Kickstarter is we're going to be doing the PDF only. If you want the physical book, and this is something that Owen and I have gone over. This is kind of made necessary by the fact that prices are just ridiculously in flux right now. What we're going to be doing is that if you back the Kickstarter, you will be able to pick up the physical book at cost. In other words, we're not making any extra money on the physical book. You're just paying the printer to print it off, and it'll ship directly to you through a print-on-demand service.
Oh, that's perfectly great. I do that with a lot of my own books that I produce through Kickstarter.
Yeah, we should probably mention that is Owen Casey Stevens of Rogue Genius Games, who is the publisher of this particular project.
Yep.
And I have the Kickstarter landing page in the comments, and I'll put that in the show notes. People can check it out. And you guys are launching in the nearest of futures, right?
We are scheduled to launch tomorrow.
Oh, wow. That is very near indeed. All right, cool. Well, hey, we're kind of dancing around it. Let's get right into the meat of it. Reign of Discordia, what is the setting all about? How do you pitch it to people?
All right. Well, as you can tell, it's a space opera setting. And the core question that I asked before I started writing in the first place was, what happens if you've got an evil empire and it falls and there's nobody to pick up the pieces? In other words, you go from having a centralized galactic government to having no government. Well, obviously, it turns into a state of chaos. So this setting goes into pretty much the extent of the chaos. So it's a little bit post-apocalyptic. I would say that not every world, every city, everything would be completely post-apocalyptic as you would imagine it. But there are going to be your places that are going to be just bad, and those are going to be places that are torn by war, famine, that sort of thing. Now, as far as the, there is kind of a central story to this. There was this lizard-like race called the Rotilic, and they got into a big war with them. The Rotilic won. The Empire fell. That was 5 years ago. Actually, 10 years ago now, where we're at the setting. 5 years after that, and this is like a development since the original Reign of Discordia was released, the Rotilic have finally been dealt with, but in the process, they have destabilized the home star of the Lamagos homeworld. Lamagos is a blue-skinned humanoid race, and as a result, I mean, they were kind of space fascists to begin with. As a result, they've kind of gone military. So this iteration of Reign of Discordia is going to be dealing with that whole situation. But you don't have to have your game tied into the central story. For example, the novel, which you put the cover up on earlier, that is really all about space archaeology. So, you don't have to be fighting space Nazis in the setting. You can be running a freighter, or you can be exploring, or it can be political. It's really whatever game you want to make of it. I try to give you the tools to be able to do that.
Now, this was a cover for a novel that you kindly let us use the art for the upcoming issue of Blaster Bolts that will feature some Reign of Discordia fiction, as well as a short adventure for White Star, set in the same setting. So that is pretty cool.
Yep, so that's the cover of the Reign of Discordia novel. The novel is called Neurogenesis.
And they can find that on Amazon, or where do we find that these days?
It is on Amazon. I can get you a link if you want one.
That would be awesome.
Give me 1 second here.
Now, let's say I was a cheesy fellow who ran a podcast and like to ask people, really obvious questions about their intellectual properties. Would I say, is this tone closer to Star Wars or Mad Max, or where would you put it on the realm of, space show IPs, if you had to?
Well, I mean, that kind of gets into what we were talking about earlier. You can kind of get it to work with any spaceship IP, frankly. But my initial thoughts when I was writing it, what happens when the evil empire falls and there's no one to pick up the pieces? I was kind of thinking Star Wars, frankly. So, as far as running into all kinds of weird aliens and fighting space fascists, that's definitely an aspect to this setting. The one thing that it does not have is any kind of parallel with the Force, because I personally don't like putting magic in my sci-fi games. There is some mental abilities, but it's rather weak.
Oh, cool. I just put the link for the novel that you shot me in private chat up in the comments. That'll be in the show notes too. Cool. Just an interesting aside. I just read a story the other day that when Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, he had an idea for the sequel trilogy that was all about Leia trying to pick up the pieces after the Empire fell. And her main conflict was going to be with various warlords, including criminal factions led by Darth Maul, as she tried to reestablish some kind of civilization in the galaxy, which almost seems to parallel what you were talking about.
It could. I mean, obviously they went in a different direction than that. And when I had originally worked on Reign of Discordia, the sequels, well, hell, they hadn't even sold Disney yet. So it seems like in terms of story, it seems like kind of an obvious place to go with it. Kind of glad they didn't go in that direction, to be honest with you.
Well, it leaves you that field to plow by yourself, so that's cool. So we were talking before the show, trying to like figure out the tone and aesthetic, because as it turns out, our boy Jacob Blackman here may be one of the artists on the Kickstarter project. Is that fair to say, or am I jumping the gun there?
Might be jumping the gun a little bit, but
let's just say if they do well, they may be able to afford me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So we were talking visual aesthetic for the setting, and you described it as kind of what they call 8-track futurism. Sort of Space 1999, Battle Beyond the Stars, Star Frontiers. Yeah, Star Frontiers might be the best example of that. So
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
So all those fun sci-fi that came out when everyone was trying to emulate Star Wars, but not quite doing it. Yeah.
Right.
There were some good shows during that time. It was rare, but there were still some gems in there.
You guys remember Quark?
That I know. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one.
Man, I love Quark. No one else remembers it. Short run comedy sci-fi show on one of the 3 big networks in the late 70s about a space salvage truck operator.
Okay.
And same kind of aesthetic. And Sean Veras says, "Here's a laugh. Just realized I picked up the Traveler edition of this game at some point. No idea when I did that. My Drive-Thru RPG library is a little too big. Yeah, mine's kind of a sprawling mess myself, man. I feel you." So. Cool. Well, what is it? This, if you were talking to your local group, trying to talk them into playing a sci-fi game, how would you pitch this one as opposed to another sci-fi RPG? What's the big selling points on this one?
I hate to say this, but if you're playing Star Wars, it's so well defined already, and Star Trek so well defined. You've got years and years and years of history that goes into it, and everybody's going to have their own take, and you're going to be sitting here and arguing about what's canon and what's not canon, and talking about episodes and all this other stuff. Reign of Discordia doesn't have that. Reign of Discordia is kind of it's something where you get your book, you read it, that's all the background you've got, that's all the background you need, and it's something where you can take it and you can make it your own. As opposed to everything being predefined and trying to figure out where the story is. It's your story. It's your world. Make it yours.
Excellent.
Cool.
That's a good selling point, because I don't know how many times I've been in a Star Wars or Star Trek game and just having to fight against one canon head or another.
Yeah, I think we've all been there at one time or another.
Yeah. What are the Twi'leks really like, etc. So.
Yep.
Well, that is cool stuff. All right, we'll just kind of hit some of the main points. This is kickstarting tomorrow. You're going to have the link in the show notes. And if you want to get a little sample, hopefully the next week or so, we're going to have issue 12 of Blaster Bolt out, which will contain a whole lot of, it'll contain a Reign of Discordia mini setting for White Star, as well as an adventure, as well as some fiction. So it's a whole lot of Reign of Discordia in one fun package. And that, we should have timed this. I should have timed this as this was releasing tomorrow when you guys are coming out. But
that's okay. Keeps the interest going.
Maybe it provides a fun mid-campaign boost. So cool, you guys are doing 5e too. Was that your idea, or did that come from the publisher? Or?
Well, that was kind of the result of a discussion between Owen and I. Initially, I mean, he's obviously, he comes from a Paizo background. So I was originally talking to him about maybe doing it for Starfinder, and then we started talking about the expectations that that the fans would have with Starfinder, and that would be that it ties into the Starfinder universe. And we decided that was probably not a good idea. On top of that, we also were looking at, let's just look at where the numbers are. Do we have more Starfinder fans, or do we have more 5e fans? Obviously, there's more 5e fans. Personally, I prefer designing for 5e. I love designing for 5e. It is my favorite thing in the world to design for. So all of these factors all kind of came together, and I said, well, I can do White Star easy enough, but if I've got to do a main system, let's just do 5e. We both agreed on it, and that's how that ended up happening. Cool. Okay. In the White Star version, what kind of classes will there be? Making your own or sticking to White Star? Okay, so my feeling is that when it comes to crunchy rules in RPGs, if it's not broke, don't fix it. For the most part, White Star is not broken. Now there is the whole I forget what they're called.
They have like space paladins and wizards. But we don't need to use them. But those are optional. You don't need to use them.
Exactly. Does that mean there won't be any originals? No, it doesn't mean that at all. You know, I might have a scholar class in there, for example, or something like that. I'm going to have to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis and decide, you know, do we have what we need exactly, or do we need a little bit more? So.
And well, the mini setting we've got a few classes in there, right?
Let me think. We mentioned the existing classes, I believe. I don't think I created a new class for that setting, though, for the mini setting.
I'm misremembering then. But all right, cool. So, and we got, while we're talking, can you give us a little preview of the adventure we're going to be seeing in issue 12, just to kind of give them, what sort of taste is upcoming there?
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. The premise of the setting, like I said, is we've got the Lamagos. Their son is going to go supernova in the near future, and because of that, they've militarized. And part of this militarization is they've invaded a world, which is kind of in Earth's sphere of influence, and it's turned into a desert war zone. And your character's job is to go in there and go to a base and free the pilots who have been taken hostage there. So that's kind of the premise of the adventure.
Standard rescue mission. Okay, cool. Well, this sounds like a lot of fun. I know I'll be in on the first day. Jacob, do you have any questions or things you wanted to ask?
No, I think we've covered most of it.
Actually, one other thing I would like to point out.
Yeah.
So the White Star space combat rules are good. They're adequate. I'm going to be expanding them for Reign of Discordia. It's going to end up looking a lot like it's going to look for the 5e edition, because, why do more work than you need to? But it's going to be a little bit more tactically oriented than what you find in the regular White Star book. Now, if you don't want to use the rules, they're optional. You can just stick with what's in White Star. All the ships are going to be 100% compatible.
That is good. Excellent.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, I love doing short, fast, fun podcasts. Get in, get out, tell people what's going on. Please check out the show notes, folks. We will have the links to the Kickstarter and links to Darren's novel for Reign of Discordia. One last time before we wrap it up, Darren, any closing thoughts? Things you want to make sure we mention?
Just come check out our Kickstarter and hope you give us your support.
Sweet. Okay. Jacob, closing thoughts before I play the contractually mandated outro music?
If you enjoy content like this, please support the BAM Podcast Patreon, and please support Darren's Kickstarter, because I know I have a lot of fans who support projects just simply because I do art for it, and if they get lots of money, they'll afford my art.
Yep.
Keep Jacob employed, folks. That's the sales pitch here. All right, hang on one second. All right, and that's our show. Thanks for checking us out, everybody, and we will catch you next time on the Banff Podcast.